Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take on wick replacement for the Dyna-Glo kerosene heater. We're going to go through and change it all, and I'm going to give you the step-by-step process of how it's done. Before we get started, take a second and hit that subscribe button and hit the thumbs up button for us. We've always got more good videos on the way. I'm going to introduce you to my camera lady here. Because obviously a project like this, I'm going to need both of my hands, so that means I can't film it, but Miss Shaylee can. Say hi.
Hi.
The Dyna-Glo kerosene heater unit that we use for our home that we're going to do this wick replacement on is actually the Dyna-Glo 23,800 BTU convectional unit. The model number that I have, I'm going to show you real quick in case you're doing the same exact one, WK95C8B. That is the unit model that I'm doing the wick replacement on. Some things that you're going to need to have on hand to be able to complete this project is, of course, the owner's manual for your unit, the actual kerosene wick, 2 C batteries, an old toothbrush, a pair of pliers, a Phillips screwdriver, and a flathead screwdriver. I also have some paper towels ready to go and 2 Walmart trash bags because you're going to need something to put the old wick into once it comes out of the unit. If you don't have your manual anymore for whatever reason, I'm going to read every step and I'm going to do the step and you'll be able to see how it's done. Basically Barney style. The replacement wick that you're going to need for the particular model that I have, the WK95C8B, this replacement wick actually is coming with the igniter, which is this tiny little piece down here. So I have the actual wick and I have the igniter that came with it. And it was ranging between $9 and $12. This particular replacement wick is model number RW16CP. On top of the Dyna-Glo, it also works for DuraHeat, Redstone, Kero Heat, and the Kero World models. So if you're not sure if it's going to work for your unit, make sure you're taking a look at the package information because they do list what models it's going to work for. The first thing I'm going to go ahead and do before I even get to what the instruction manual says as far as taking pieces off is I have to remove this outer cage. So I'm going to start by getting all of these taken off. So this is where your Phillips screwdriver is going to come in handy. And while I'm going ahead taking these cages off, I'm actually going to go ahead and give this unit basically a good scrub down too, because if you notice on the top, I have a whole bunch of buildup and stuff that's everywhere. It has not been cleaned since the beginning of the season, so I'm going to go ahead and get that cleaned up. And this piece is, boop, it comes right off. So this cage is going to pop out of here. If you start from the bottom and pull, if you pull this off first, you'll release one side at a time and it'll basically open like on a swing hinge. And there you go. There's one of the cages off. Okay, flip this over and let's do the other side. What we're going to do is just push down on the top and that's going to release it, and then you lift up on the bottom and pull it out. Okay, so remove the handle, and then this piece is going to simply lift up. Pretty nasty. That's why we're going to get all this washed up. Okay, now that we have these 2 particular pieces that really take most of the cruddy abuse here, I'm going to take these over to the sink. I have discovered with cleaning these pieces, the best thing to use is oven cleaner. So I'm just going to spray both sides. Okay, and then I'm going to take this other piece and I'm going to do the same thing. And that's it. We're going to let this sit and let the oven cleaner basically eat off all the grime. All right, next step is Shaylee's going to come on over here and take a look in the inside. This piece needs to come out next. And all you're going to do is just simply lift it up. I'm not going to do anything further with this particular piece until I reassemble it And all I'm going to do is take the toothbrush and literally brush it all off and clean it up. But that's all I'll be doing with this piece. Next piece that needs to come off is this actual barrel piece. Okay, in order to get this off, this is where you're going to need to use your flathead screwdriver. You'll notice there's bolts. There's one on each side that's going to need to be removed. It does not take much to get these bolts off. There's one. I'm going to go over to the other side and I'm going to do the same thing. All of your hardware that you pull off of the unit, the best tip that I can give you is to either get a small dish and put it in so you don't lose anything, or in my case, I'm going to just set it over here in a pile on my towel, and that's where it's going to stay so I don't lose it. So once your two bolts are removed, this lifts up. And that's all I'm going to do with this piece is just lift it up, and I'm going to set it off to the side. And when I get to reassembling it, that's when I'm going to go take a damp rag and I'm going to wipe everything down. But until then, just set it off to the side. Step 1 of your instruction manual says to push down the manual shutoff knob, which is this right here. So you're going to push that down, and that is to ensure that your wick has gone all the way down. Okay, and then it says you're going to turn the wick adjustment knob counterclockwise in the direction of off. So that's taking this knob and making sure that you're turning it towards the shutoff knob to make sure that it is completely off. Step 2, you're going to use the screwdriver to loosen and remove the cabinet screws on either side of the heater cabinet. Wait up, throw that to the side. I already did that, right? I did that because I'm actually cleaning all of my pieces. So that's what I already sprayed in the sink with the oven cleaner. If you don't want to take your unit apart that far and actually clean pieces, what the manual is basically telling you is that those two screws that were right here, if you decide to leave the cage and the barrel and the handle, everything intact, these two screws, remove it, and you would lift the whole unit up as one piece, okay? Leaving you the bottom piece. I wanted to scrub and clean today, so I took it all apart. If that's not your choice and you just want to simply replace the wick and be done with it, then take it apart in one section and remove it off. Okay, moving on to step 3, use the carrying handle to lift the cabinet straight up and away from the heater. That goes back to the step 2 that I just said. Step 4, we're going to gently pull the wick adjustment knob off of the heater. Wick adjustment knob is the black piece right here, and it's telling us we need to slowly pull that off of the heater. It's going to take a little pulling effort to get it off. There we go. It's going to take a little bit of effort, but it does come off. Step 5 wants us to remove the cabinet base by lifting it from the back and tilting it forward to clear the wick adjuster assembly. This here is the wick adjuster assembly. So this black piece going around your unit, that is called the cabinet base. And what it's telling you is you need to lift it from the back, okay? And then you're going to pull it forward because you have to clear all of your buttons. But wait a minute, we're not going anywhere here. The reason you can't just yank it off is because it's attached to your fuel cap, okay? So I am not going to disassemble any of it. There's no need to disassemble any of that. You're just simply going to take it off and you're going to lay it right next to the unit. That's it. Next, we're going to trip the pendulum on the automatic safety shutoff system to lower the wick. So the pendulum is actually this piece right here. So we're going to trip this by tipping it, and that ensures that the wick is already down, and it is. Okay, that's why it's not really doing anything, because my wick is already down. Step 7, we're going to remove the 4 wing nuts which hold the wick assembly to the heater and carefully lift the wick assembly from the heater. Wing nuts. This is where Shayla's going to bring us in and get really close. This piece right here, this is called a wing nut. Okay, there are 4 of them on this unit. Shaylee's going to back off here. Okay, so there's one here, there's one here, there's one on the back side, and there's one over here. There's 4 of them total. This is where a set of pliers is going to come in handy, because when they assemble these units at the manufacturer, they don't just make those wing nuts hand tight. You're going to need something to get in there and loosen it all up. So I'm going to use a pair of pliers here, and I'm going to get this loose enough so that I can finish taking it off using simply my fingers. Okay, here we go. So you're going to take this little wing nut, and you're going to set your wing nut with your pile of bolts, and then you're going to move on and you're going to get the rest of them. So 1 down, 3 more to go. So you're going to notice when you're taking your wing nuts off that it's pretty close to all these wires here. So just a little tip, make sure that you're not bumping into those wires so you don't accidentally break something. And those wires go to the automatic igniter. You don't realize how dirty your unit is until you start taking it apart. Okay, so step 8 wants us to replace the wick adjustment knob temporarily and then turn the knob clockwise to raise the wick. Before I get into doing that step, I am going to go back to my battery box here, and I'm going to take my C batteries out. So the reason for that is I'm starting to get into this more in depth, and this is the ignition switch. If I were to accidentally bump this because I had the batteries in, I could potentially light this right in front of my face. So I took the batteries out. Now I can hit the switch all day long and it's not going to start anything off. Wick adjustment knob. Here's our knob, and it wants us to put it back on. It's telling us we need to turn it clockwise to raise the wick. So now we're going to go towards the red switch and look up here. It's telling you to raise the wick for step 8. My wick is nasty. It has been used. Holy cow. Definitely ready for replacement. Once you get to step 9 in your manual, this is where it starts to get dirty, because obviously we're dealing with a wick that has already been sitting in kerosene, so it's not coming out clean. Okay, so step 9 wants us to hold the wick assembly upside down using caution, grasp the wick cover firmly, pull it off with a sharp tug. If you have difficulty doing so, try loosening the wick cover with a flat blade screwdriver. Okay, so flat blade screwdriver. Shaylee's going to come in close. This is the piece that we're going to take off, and it's telling us that with the flat blade screwdriver, okay, if you just use that and tuck it in, see how it's moving? And if you do that all the way around, you're loosening it up from the seal that's underneath it. Because there is a seal. There we go. I just heard it. Okay, I'm going to stop at step 9, and I'm going to get my plastic bags ready, because in the upcoming steps, I'm going to have to have a place to have that wick go into, so it's sitting off to the side but not ruining everything. Okay, so I got my bag ready. So what's going to happen now is this whole unit is going to lift up. Okay, so I'm basically slightly wiggling this unit. There it goes. And we're off. This is what the wick assembly will look like once it's been placed upside down. And then, I'm going to take a look at our base here. This is actually the inside of my fuel tank, and my fuel tank is currently empty. Okay, but this is what the inside of it would look like. And if it was full, you would be able to see all your fuel sitting right down there. So what happens is your wick slides over this barrel piece, and then it just sits nice in there, and it soaks up your kerosene fuel. Okay, so the next steps that we need to do is to basically get the old wick out of here. So there's a plate cover that you're going to turn and lift, okay? And then you'll also notice, this is where your fingers are going to get dirty. Shaylee's going to have to come in close here to see this. There's little teeth. Okay, your instruction manual suggests wearing gloves to prevent any injuries. If you're not familiar with doing this, you might want to consider that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my wick and I'm going to pull it off of those teeth. That way this piece can come right off, and I'm just going to set this off to the side. I'm doing all of my work on a towel here. Step 10, remove the wick by folding it to the inside, then remove the wick sleeve from the bottom of the assembly. So I'm going to fold the wick to the side. Now Shayla's going to move the camera to look right up in here. So there's 3 little tab prongs here inside the wick. So you need to fold your wick to detach all of those prongs. Okay, now back up. All right, and then once you have your wick folded, you simply pull it out, and look at this. Right in the bag, and it didn't touch nothing. This is another reason why paper towel on hand is a good idea, okay? So now what we're ready for is to install the new wick. So I'm going to get this package open. Here's another tip too. If you no longer had your instruction manual, the wick replacement does come with some basic wick replacement instructions. I would not 100% rely on this because it's not designed specifically for a certain heater. So the best reference to use is your instruction manual. Use this as like a backup if you don't have your manual. Okay, now that we have the new wick out of the package, it's nice. We've examined it. It looks good. Don't worry about what looks like this little rip. That is there for a reason. That's not defective. That's there for helping us get this slid back onto the cylinder piece here. Okay, so come on back in. And there is what's called a wick sleeve that is inside here. And we're going to pull that out. Okay, and then there is some words on here. There we go. It's hard to see, but this one says up. The camera's not catching it very well because it's like an engraving that's on the sleeve, but there is an arrow pointing up and the word up next to it, and that's telling you that the top part of the wick needs to be going this direction, so you know which way the sleeve has to go on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wick, and you're going to notice some holes inside the sleeve, and we need to line up these prongs in those holes and make sure you're holding it in the correct direction. My sleeve says this way is up, so that means the top of my kerosene wick needs to be going this way. Okay, so I did find with practice that it's easier to kind of fold it and stick it in here and start lining your prongs. Okay, this is going to be probably the most time-consuming portion. Okay, something I also want to show you, I don't know if the camera is going to get it, but you're going to see like these spike-looking things in the inside of your wick sleeve. When you're putting this on, just be really careful not to catch your skin. Okay, so you're going to have to kind of push the wick on it after you line up your prongs. Okay, you're going to need to push. This is going to probably take some time and some work to get it on there the way that it needs to. Maneuvering it around, stretching it around. Okay, now I'm going to show you the inside here. Now that my cylinder piece is on, my wick still isn't perfectly circle. I still see some gaps going on, so I got to go back in and I got to work all that spacing out. And even after I put this into the unit, I'm probably going to have to do that again. Okay, well, let's have a look here. It's definitely a lot better than what it was. So I got this put on correctly. Step 12 is what I just showed you. We're pushing the new wick into those teeth, the retainer teeth of the wick sleeve, so that the wick adheres tightly around the inside of the wick sleeve, smoothing out any wrinkles. So that's saying that we don't want any gaps, and you want all those teeth to connect to the wick. Okay, that was step 12. Step 13, if you look here, this is the wick adjuster slots. So what happens is, now that the wick is out, I'm just going to demonstrate this. These slots, okay, these prongs need to align up in those slots, because when I turn this dial, watch what's happening. That is what's making your wick go up and down. Okay, so when you reinsert this back in, make sure you've got that lined up correctly. So step 13, line up the pins with the slotted holes inside the wick adjuster. This is the wick adjuster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my prongs. Now this is bendable. You can bend it to get it back in. And more than likely going to need to do that. Just be very careful not to put creases in it. Okay, so once you have your wick and your sleeve put in, we're going to come in closer here, you're going to notice those pins all need to be lined up in those slots. And I'm going to turn this around so you can see my other slots here. Okay. They all need to be lined up so that that pin is in that slot. And you may need to put your hand in there and make sure everything has been smoothed out. Okay, so take a look inside the wick. Okay, we want to make sure everything's smoothed out and everything is connected the way that it's supposed to be. There is a note in the instruction manual that once you get the wick attached, it's on the sleeve, it's in the slots, you're going to turn this knob, because we want to make sure that the wick is going up and down the way that it's supposed to. And it's working. Now that we have the wick in here, and it's all nice and attached, okay, I'm just going to kind of fold this up here. And step 15 wanted us to flip it upside down, which we already are, okay. If you were turning this dial to make sure it goes up and down, you would flip it over, make sure. And Shayla's going to get a shot of this, but see how the wick is going up and down? I know I've got it into the slots where it needs to go. Okay, flip it back over. That's step 15. Step 16 wants us to go ahead and align the tabs on the wick cover with the 4 screw holes on the bottom of the assembly. These little tabs, can you see this? Okay. These little tabs need to align. It's hard to see, but there's like these little metal bumps right here on the side. So when you're placing the wick cover on it, you're going to need to align this with those little bumps, okay? And then that way, when you turn this, okay, it locks into place, okay? And that way you can pick this unit up as one. Step 17 takes us back to the main unit here, okay? So come on over here. And this piece right here is actually a rubber seal. Okay, so when you put this, flip it back over, it's sitting on this rubber seal. This is really critical, okay? Without this rubber seal, you'll have kerosene going everywhere, okay? So while I have this open, this is where my paper towel is going to come in handy, and I'm going to take a bunch of sheets and I'm going to get them ready. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe down this rubber seal going around, and there's all kinds of gunk buildup right here. So I'm going to get all of that cleaned up. Okay. And then there's all kinds of gunk and dirt and dust that's going to come off. Try not to get that inside your tank. Be really careful when you're wiping that down. Okay, so now that my seal has been wiped, I'm going to go around this outer edge and watch this. You know, wipe that clean. All kinds of nastiness is going to come off. So if you're intending to clean your heater, the best way to do it is to do it while you are replacing that wick and you have everything disassembled anyways. And you can really get in there. Come on this side. It's all the gunk. And now we're going to give it a good wipe. Great time to get all that nastiness off of your heater. And then the reason I had the toothbrush is so that I can really get in there into all the hard to reach places, get around the screws, you get all that junk out of there. I'm going to do that all the way around the unit. And then in here, I don't want to take these pieces off, so the toothbrush just allows you to get in there in the hard to reach places without disassembling it anymore. Okay, now I'm going to go around the base here, get this all nice and cleaned up. Yep, so damp paper towel, get any junk that you have on the outside of the heater. It'll just wipe right off. If you wanted to clean this even further, you can take the seal completely out, wash it up, all that. But my units are still pretty new. I don't think that's necessary at this time. And then I'll just make sure that seal is pushed down. And voila! We are ready to start getting this next piece on. Okay. So, back to the instruction manual. Step 17 was to make sure the rubber seal on the tank is properly sealed. I've already double checked that. I've cleaned. I'm going to take my wick and I'm going to lift it, because if you see here on the wick cover, we have those sharp little prongs here, and that needs to catch the wick. So I'm just going to lift this gently back up, and I'm going to make sure that everything is stuck on those prongs. Okay, so now it should look like this. Step 18 tells you to turn the wick adjustment knob to the fully raised position. When you turn this unit back upside right and we're sliding it on, we're going to need to make sure the wick knob is turned so that the wick is all the way raised. We're going to pull lightly on the skirt of the wick to remove any of the slack. So if this was like jumbled down, that's called slack. So we need to make sure that it's pulled tightly up. And then we're going to press lightly to secure the skirt to the retainer teeth on the wick cover. That's what all those prongs were. And then you're going to need to hold the knob in the clockwise position to keep the wick raised. Okay, this is where I'm going to stop reading the instruction manual, and because I can't hold this and do this at the same time. So what's going to happen is, now that this is all fully assembled, we are going to take this unit and we're going to flip it back over. Okay, so here's my unit, and it says we need to raise this wick all the way up, is what it's saying. Okay, and then what we're going to do is slide it on to here. Okay, this may take two people. You're going to have to be very gentle when you're doing this. Another way to keep this so that the wick is up is to lock the pendulum in place. You can use that, using pliers, clothespins, whatever. If this moves, it's going to shoot your wick back down. I don't have anything to secure it right now. And this is what we're going to do. Very gently, we're going to slide it back onto the center cylinder. It's really important that you do this step with the wick up. Be really careful so it doesn't shoot it back down. Okay, Shaylee's going to come over here and give you the shot of the inside here. Okay, so what's happening is you see all these little wrinkles here, and it's going to need to be smoothed back out. Okay, so you can accomplish that by gently tugging down here. We're going to gently tug this until it slides where it needs to be. Okay, come back up and give the top shot. So as I'm pulling this down and sliding it to where it needs to be, getting it all nice and snug, see how all my wrinkles and stuff smoothed right out? And now I'm ready to gently push this unit back down. Okay, so we had the butterfly screws. Okay, so what I need to do is get this screw hole lined back up here. So I'm going to gently slide it back down, just like that. Okay, this is back in the position it needs to be. And remember, your knob needs to be between the fuel gauge and the fuel tank cap, right above the warning label. That's where it needs to be placed. My wick is up all the way. Okay, there we go. That is back in place. Okay, so what I just did was step 19, replace the wick assembly on the heater with the wick raised. Then you're going to use the wick adjuster knob, and it'll need to be positioned between the caution and the warning labels. That's everything I just explained here. That needs to be in the center. And then you're going to replace 2 diagonally opposite wing nuts first. So what that is telling us is these are the wing nuts, and we need to do one here and then one on the other side. And then we're going to do one here and then one on the other side. And that's going to give us a really nice compression against that seal to really push this unit and lock that seal down. Okay, so I'm going to get my wing nut on finger tight first. And then I'm going to go back through and I'm going to use my pliers and really give it a good snug fit. Be sure not to overdo it because you don't want to break anything, okay? You just want to get everything really nice and snug. Okay, toothbrush again. And what we're going to do is run around this side right here. And we're just going to clean all the crap off of it. You're going to get a lot of dust. But it's going to get all this nastiness off of your unit. Step 20, while your heater is disassembled, check the automatic safety shutoff system. Remove the locking pliers or clothespin from the TOS mechanism if you use them to assist with the wick installation. That just means on this side, this is your little pendulum, okay? So when this tips, this is triggering your system to shut down, and that little white piece will shut it down, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to test this. You're going to trip the automatic shutoff system by nudging the pendulum. Raise the wick by turning the wick adjuster knob. Trip it again to make certain that it's operating correctly. Now, after some experience here, the wick is not going to easily move up and down in your unit simply because this is dry. It hasn't had any access to fuel yet because my fuel gauge is empty. With me working on this, you saw there was no fuel in there. So with this being a dry wick, it's not going to go down and come back up very easily. So it's already up, and when I hit the shutoff, it did not go back down. I'm going to need to get some fuel in there. That way the wick will slide. It's got lubrication to go up and down. Okay, so one thing I want to test real quick is this pendulum. I want to knock it to the side. It did move. So once that's telling me that once I get the fuel in here and the wick soaks it up and everything's nice and moist and lubricated, that my system, when this gets moved, it's going to shoot that wick back down. The rest of the manual, basically from steps 21 and then through 28, is talking about the wick going up and down, proper height adjustment. Your wick is supposed to be set at 3/8 of an inch, okay? So when I turn this knob, what that means is that when it's all the way up, this wick needs to be 3/8 of an inch up, okay? And it is, because mine has already been put in according to manufacturer's manual. We're done, guys. We're getting rid of that. Now we're going to assemble it all back together. So to get the pieces to go back on, you're going to start by taking the black knob back off. So we're going to gently pull it. Don't go too hog wild. Okay. And then our cabinet cover here, just follow the holes. Line everything back up. Okay. Make sure you go from the front and then lower the back. And it's going to take some tinkering and sliding to making sure that you got it to go over everything. The battery box is a little bit of a pain in the neck to get it to go back over. Okay, something, there we go. Okay, now the cabinet cover is on. I'm going to give this a little bit of a wipe down, because like I said, I am cleaning my unit as I go. By the time I'm done with this, nobody's going to know it's a used model. Once your cabinet is on, go ahead and put your knob back on. So once you have your cabinet piece back on, you're going to notice this piece right here with all the holes. Okay. We're just simply going to lift this piece up, okay? I'm going to have Shaylee come on in really close over on this side, okay? This right here is your igniter, okay? So back up just a little bit. So when I flip this switch, watch what happens to the igniter. And then it comes right here. So this is how your igniter works. Okay, if I bring my wick all the way up to where it belongs, okay, watch what happens to the igniter, okay? It's not going to ignite because there's no batteries in it, okay? But when I move the switch, the igniter is going to basically get really stupid close to this wick, if not touching it, okay? And that is what does the automatic lighting of your unit. To replace this little igniter, if your wick replacement comes with a new one, you're simply going to push this in. You're going to push and turn. And it's basically a little spring-loaded contraption in there, and you'll be able to take your old igniter out. So the new igniter, to put that in, it's going to go in with the prongs kind of like on a diagonal to the little box. You're going to push it in, and then you're going to turn it. And it'll lock in place. That's it. That's all there is to it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my center column. Here's my column. And I'm going to simply slide this back down. And this is easy to figure out. Just line up your holes. And we've kept our bolts in a safe place. So now we're just going to go ahead and get those bolts back in. Just be real careful so you don't snap anything, because it's just a very slender piece of metal that it's attaching to. Turn it around. I'm going to do the other side. This is now one connected piece. I'm just going to give this a little wipe, spruce it up. Now as time goes on, you're going to notice the paint is peeling, scratching, all of that. That's just cosmetic. Everybody remember this piece? So what I'm going to do with this piece is I'm just going to use my toothbrush. Do not use paper towel on this, because you're going to get little paper towel fibers everywhere. And then you're going to have this little mini fire going on in your unit. Okay, so I'm just going to use my toothbrush and I'm going to dust it off. Now the trick with inserting this back inside the unit is this little tab here. If you open your door, this little tab needs to be sitting about right here. So I find the easiest way to put this in is just hold it like this, and then it's going to go up and it's going to go in. And then once I place it in, we're going to see my tab right here. And you should be able to freely move that. Close the door. So at this point, the wick replacement is totally complete. All I have left to do is to finish cleaning my pieces that I've had soaking in oven cleaner, brush that all off, and then assemble those pieces back on the unit. Okay, now that I got the center column in, I'm just going to pop in my handles. I'm going to carry this outside and fill it up. So the reason why I did all this work in the house is because it's been really cold out here all day, and I really didn't want to sit in the cold and do all this. After I got it assembled this far, I'm just waiting on a couple pieces to air dry because I don't want to waste paper towel and towels to dry it. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to put the fuel in it, because if you remember, I already said the wick doesn't have any lubrication on it for it to be able to slide up and down the way that it should. So I know all my systems are working correctly. Now I got to get the fuel in the tank. Manufacturer's instructions actually tell you when you first assemble these, you need to make sure that the wick is soaking for 1 hour in the fuel. So that's what we're going to do. So back here is the little battery compartment, and I'm just going to insert brand new C-cell batteries. And then I'm going to shut my compartment, and now I'll be able to start it after an hour. While my fuel is getting soaked up into the wick here for an hour, I'm going to go through and I'm going to put all my pieces back on. Then is my handle is going to slide right through that. Don't forget these pieces. So the top and the bottom is not the same, so make sure the piece going in this direction is down on the bottom. That way your cage can just slide in. So that's going to go there. And slightly push it down. Give it a little wiggle. Make sure it's intact. We're going to do the same thing to the other side. This little top piece is easiest to start with. Slide it in. And then on the bottom here, you'll just hook it. Okay, and now we're going to turn it around. I'm going to do the other side. That oven cleaner really took off a lot of the gunk that was on here. Ate away a lot of that grime. Looks a lot better than it did. And so now putting the top on is a matter of lining up your little holes with the top of the cage. Then dig in my pocket and find my little screw. Get a little finger tight there. And then finish tightening it up with the Phillips. Okay, we are a finished, completed project. Voila! Alright, now that we're all assembled, new wick, new igniter, we're going to let this finish sitting for the hour to let that kerosene soak up into the wick, and then we're going to fire this baby up, make sure everything's working properly before I take it into the house. All right, thanks so much, Shaylee, for filming everything for us today. We really appreciate it, and we're going to wrap this up. If you guys have any comments, suggestions, anything positive that can help other people with kerosene wick replacements, because it certainly is a whole lot more than slap it in there and go. Drop it in the comments below. You know, we're always interested to know what are wicks costing other people, like where are you getting your wicks, you know, things along that nature. So that's going to do it for us today. We are tired from filming all this, and we're going to go eat dinner, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.
All right, what's up, Toots? What are we doing?
Well, we're going to do a moment of truth here. Let's see. This has actually been sitting for a couple hours now, soaking. So now we're just going to see if she starts up.
What happens if it doesn't?
If she doesn't,
Are we gonna blow up?
We're not gonna blow up. But you're gonna be cuddling up, freezing up your hiney. Okay. So I'm gonna flip that switch. This, I see the glow.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to get a good shot of it.
There it goes.
A little bit of smoke coming out, but I bet you that's some of your cleaning solution that you use to clean it up.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And she's lit.
Yeah, so now what we're gonna do right now is just let her burn for probably about a half hour or so. Make sure everything's fully caught. It hasn't been lit yet since I put the wick in it.
Mm-hmm.
So everything just kind of needs to adjust. The flame needs to get to where it needs to be. Yep, but she's on. It works.
And we didn't blow up.
You weren't gonna blow up.
I've lost eyebrows before.
Well, I got one up on ya. I've never lost an eyebrow.
There's a first time for everything, honey.
Not today. Alright. Yep, we're just going to let her burn for a little bit. And then I'll turn the flame back down to manufacturer setting. We're good to go. The other one that I cleaned up earlier is really, it's good.
Nice and toasty.
Good.
Nice and toasty in there.
Yeah.
Should be proud of yourself.
I am proud of myself. Yeah, the other unit looks brand new. Yeah.
So you took everything apart. There were no extra pieces left over when you put it all back together?
No. No extra pieces.
Well, I don't know why that always happens for me.
We should be good.
All right, any other comments?
Follow the instructions. That's all I can really say.
That is absolute blasphemy. You're talking to a man. You realize that, right?
Okay, for all you men out there, read the instructions.
Overrated.
You can't just slap the wick in there and go.
Sure you can.
No, you can't.
That's how everything works. Just slap it in there and go.
You know, I'm not surprised for the people who just slap wicks in these things and think it's going to work. I'm not surprised if they run into problems.
Wow, the flame is already all around the wick.
That's great. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be doing. I did good.
Oh, wow. All right, we won't freeze to death tonight. Congratulations.
You're welcome. From yours truly.
How's that go again?
I said you're welcome. From yours truly.